What's up, everyone? It's the Autistic Scyther here, and this is part 2 of Top 10 Ninjas in Video Games. Now, if you're wondering what numbers 10 through 6 are, part 1 is up now on my channel, so I suggest you watch that video first, then come back to this video for the remaining 5 entries. Alright, since we got that taken care of, let's get back into it. Moving on at number 5, we have Jago from Killer Instinct. And, alright, Jago is an interesting character to be called a ninja. And this is really saying a lot since Jago was essentially raised as a Tibetan warrior monk, which is naturally saying a lot. However, even with that, he was more or less trained in tiger spirit martial arts. Of course, that being said, after killing a man in self-defense, he eventually ended up sequestering himself in order to try and temper his abilities so they don't essentially overtake him, so he'd become his Shadow Jago form. And of course, this led him to essentially enter into the Killer Instinct Ultimate Tournament in order to take down Ultra Tech and destroy the demon Gargos. Which, naturally enough, he honestly has a lot of the skills to do it. Especially considering his fighting style. Since more often than not, he focuses on his fighting styles is basically a martial arts fighting style, alongside usage of his signature katana or Kora, depending on the game. In the 2013 remakes, it's a Kora. But even with that, he's still a pretty interesting individual, and more often than not, makes him a kind of interesting individual for anyone who play through Killer Instinct with. Honestly, that's all I gotta say. Really says a lot. Moving on next at number 4, we have Scorpion. Honestly, did you ever think I would ever do a top 10 ninjas in video games list and not put Scorpion from Mortal Kombat anywhere on that list? Honestly, I didn't think so. And honestly, Scorpion's one of the most interesting and iconic characters, to the point everyone knows about him. Even those who haven't played Mortal Kombat will know who he is. And honestly, considering how Mortal Kombat is known for having a rainbow of ninjas, Scorpion's one of the most known for his basic iconic efforts. And considering and of course, he started off as Hanzo Hisashi, a ninja of the Shiryu ninja clan, who essentially had his clan and family killed by the Lin Kuei ninja faction, of which he ended up swearing revenge on them, thus leading him to enter into the Nether Realm fighting tournament, and as one of Shao Kahn's enforcers. And as such, during the entire series, he ends up killing the original Sub-Zero Bi-Han, which really does say a lot. Of course, that being said, he ended up dying in himself, but was brought back to life as a revenant. And naturally, you can see his almost supernatural revenant abilities in his moveset, Granted, he's had different fighting styles like Hapkido and Ninjutsu, but honestly, most of his fighting styles had to do with fire, like fire breath, fire punches, teleporting through hellfire, with his most iconic move being basically spearing opponents with his rope dart. And basically, I think when anyone thinks of Scorpion, they think of him just saying, "Get over here!" and spearing opponents with his rope dart before pulling them in and then just taking them out for the KO. Honestly, really does say a lot. That's all I gotta say. Moving on next at number 3, we have Koga from the Pokemon franchise. Honestly, for those who already don't know, I love Pokemon. And honestly, considering how I had a hard time figuring out which Pokemon to choose for this ninja list. And I decided, why not choose a human? And of course, this led me to the first ninja that many a Pokemon fan came across in the franchise, being the original Fuchsia City gym leader, Koga. And this guy is a straight up ninja. I mean, his name is basically the name of an actual ninja clan, the Koga Ninja Clan, which is kind of fun when you think about it. Not only that, he specializes in poison types, which when you think of ninjas, they have a knowledge of different poisons and how to utilize them in combat, as well as utilizing medicinal herbs as well. And his gym is basically a maze of illusory walls that I know stymied any player who played through any of the Gen 1 games or their remakes. I mean, I know I did. And the TM he gives you is the TM for Toxic, which has been passed down to his family for the move Toxic, which had been passed down to his family. And it's a pretty solid move too. That being said, his Pokemon team is even further when you think about it. As in his original gym battles, he's used the Coughing line, the Venonat line, and Muck. But when he was promoted from Gym Leader to Elite 4 in Generation 2, he not only kept Muck and Venomoth, but he added in the likes of Ariados, Crobat, and Forretress, which isn't a poison type, but is known for setting up spikes. And even further, in his rematch in Heart Gold Soul Silver, he even adds Toxicroak, Skuntank, and Swalot to his team. Which is pretty amazing that they added those there. Now, I know we've had ninja trainers since then, with Janine in Gen 2 and Atticus in Gen 9, but honestly, Koga's the gold standard for any ninja Pokemon trainer. And that's really saying a lot. Moving on next at number 2, we have Shadow Man from Mega Man 3. What's cooler than a ninja gym leader? A robot ninja. And honestly, considering many of the robot masters that Wily created, yeah, Shadow Man's one of his most cunning and wily members, ones that he's employed. However, Unlike the other robot masters, Wily never built Shadow Man. In fact, he essentially came to be from a mysterious metal from space. That being said, it therefore makes him an alien robot ninja, which honestly is still pretty much the most awesome thing I've ever seen in my life. And while his main stage is basically an underground sewer, his battle basically is the one that most people will remember, as it's slightly easy, since mostly he's just slides past Mega Man before jumping. And he's most likely known for throwing his Shadow Blade at Mega Man, which the shuriken that he uses for the Shadow Blade is coated with a deadly poison that can corrode the mechanisms of any robot that it touches. Wow. Really something. And additionally, even in his other two appearances in the Game Boy version of Mega Man 3 or Mega Man The Power Fighters 2, he has other tactics that he utilizes that is even utilized as basically standard ninja fare, from ninja smoke screens to throw Mega Man off his game, Makabishi caltrops to basically thrown in front of Mega Man to basically hurt and deal damage to him, and even summoning a frog robot, basically as a reference to the tale of the Gallant Jiraiya. Granted, if you want to know more about Shadow Man, I suggest you watch Gaijin Goomba's Which Ninja video about him to know more about him, since he basically goes over it better than I could. That's a way of life. Finally, number 1, we have Shadow from Final Fantasy VI. Honestly, when it comes to the Final Fantasy franchise, and ninjas, Shadow is one of the most iconic ninjas out there. Granted, other than the individuals like Yuffie from Final Fantasy VII, everyone knows about Shadow, which really does say a lot. And I haven't gotten that far in Final Fantasy VI. But even with that, for most of that, Shadow is a traveling mercenary / assassin who more or less got started as a bandit, where he was robbing trains. However, after settling down, he basically decided to essentially keep his distance so someone doesn't track him from his past, doesn't track him down. And he basically went on to run with his dog Interceptor. And of course, when we see him in the main story of the game, Sabin essentially ends up getting his help to escort him to Narsh, and he and the two of them end up traveling through Doma, teaming up with Cyan in order to get there. And also on the way there, at any point, he could leave the group, which really says a lot. Being said, whenever you fight, whenever you get into a battle with him, yeah, he basically is a pretty powerful party member, especially due to the throw command, which allows him to throw weapons at any of his opponents to deal massive damage to them, as well as gaining some assistance from his dog Interceptor, as a reference to how ninjas end up gaining the help of animals in their stealth missions. And honestly, it's one of the more you get a lot of backstory idea about who he was in the past. Especially to a point that I don't want to spoil. But honestly, it's one of the most heartwarming moments I've ever seen in my life. That's all I gotta say. And that is the top 10 ninjas in video games. Like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you next time.